Sometimes product owners are reluctant to spend hours with the team doing sprint planning. Guys, I've already listed what I want. I don't have time to be at your sprint planning meeting. And that is a pretty serious problem. The reason why the whole team and the product owner have to be at the sprint planning meeting is because each story contains 3 variables that are highly dependent on each other. So scope and importance, the first 2 variables, are set by the product owner, and estimate, that is the time estimate for completing that work, is set by the team. And during a sprint planning session, these 3 variables are fine-tuned continuously through the face-to-face dialogue between the team and the product owner. And as you saw in the previous lesson, the product owner starts the meeting by summarizing his goal for the sprint and the most important stories. And then the team goes through and time estimates each story, starting with the most important one. And as they do this, they will come up with important scope questions that the product owner will have to answer. And in some cases, the answers may be surprising to the team, prompting them to change their estimates. And in other cases, the time estimate for a story won't be what the product owner expected. And this may prompt him or her to change the importance of the story or change the scope of the story, which in turn will cause the team to re-estimate. So this type of direct collaboration is fundamental to Scrum and, in fact, all agile software development. And one of the main activities of sprint planning meeting is to decide which stories to include in the sprint, or more specifically, which stories from the product backlog to copy over to the sprint backlog. And the product owner proposes a sprint goal and introduces the most important stories, but the team decides how many stories to include in the sprint. So how can the product owner influence their decision? Well, the first thing he or she has to do is make sure that they always attend sprint planning. And during the sprint planning meeting, let's say we have a situation like this. And the product owner is disappointed that story D won't be included in the sprint. So what are his options during the sprint planning meeting? Well, the first option is to reprioritize. So if he gives item D the highest level of importance, the team would be obliged to add that to the sprint first. In this case, bumping out story C. And the second option is to change the scope by reducing the scope of, say, story A until the team believes that story D will fit into the sprint. And then the third option is to split a story. The product owner might decide that there are some aspects of story A that really are not important, and so he may split story A into 2 parts, story A1 and A2, with different importance levels. So as you can see, although the product owner doesn't directly decide which stories to pick up in a sprint, there are many ways in which he or she can influence which stories make it into that sprint. Okay, so we're done for now. The next lesson will focus on the role of the development team in Scrum. See you soon.